All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, thanks everybody that's on the line for joining us. We really appreciate it. We've got a great case study to share today. I know that there are a lot of organizations out there that still are struggling to figure out how to move away from Oracle Identity Manager or other legacy platforms, not quite sure what the replacement options are, how to get started, how to move the needle, and actually what the benefits that they might be missing out on if they stick with that old platform. We at Integral Partners have had the pleasure of working with Leslie, as you just heard, and her whole team at PG&E there to help them unwind and replace what I think is about 5 years plus of investment in the Oracle platform. And you'll hear all the details there about the integrations and what they did to get that thing to work, all the custom dev and things that they've had to do, but eventually decided to try to move away, and we had the pleasure of helping them do that. Integral Partners were actually a consulting company that focuses exclusively on identity and access management. Now we, of course, implement modern solutions like SailPoint, but many years ago, we actually started out focusing on what are now legacy platforms like Oracle and IBM solutions. And I think that perspective and that deep experience with both the legacy and the modern platforms is a really big reason why we've been successful on these type of migration projects, helping companies move away from the legacy systems, because we know both. Speaking of SailPoint, I'd actually like to introduce Harry Gould. Harry is the Senior Vice President of Worldwide Alliances and Channels at SailPoint. The SailPoint platform, as you're going to hear, played a big role in this project, and he's been nice enough to join us. He's going to give a little introduction about the case study and the project from his perspective.
Good morning and good afternoon. As Dom mentioned, I'm Harry Gould, and I run the partner organization at SailPoint. I'm really excited about today's webinar on several levels. First of all, SailPoint has enjoyed a terrific relationship with Integral Partners over the years. Integral has shown that they have a deep technical knowledge and project management ability, and I believe it's kind of their holistic understanding of identity and access management that allows them to be successful. They can take a project I've seen many times from early stages of evaluation, strategy, product selection, through implementation and adoption successfully. They're a SailPoint Admiral partner, which means they have distinguished themselves in their ability to implement the SailPoint identity security platform. The second reason why I'm so excited is we're grateful and pleased that Leslie DeAnda from PG&E has taken the time to participate and tell her story about their identity journey that they've had and the success with Integral and with SailPoint. Our customers are at the heart of everything we do, and we so value the relationship that we have with PG&E, and so thank you very much, Leslie. Lastly, this is one of the most impressive projects that I've seen in a very long time. I've been with SailPoint for about 6.5 years. Replacing Oracle and successfully migrating to a modern identity platform is no small feat. But PG&E, Integral, and SailPoint worked as a team. And I believe we can do the same for you no matter what legacy IAM platform you may be using. With that, I'll turn things back over to Dom.
Thanks, Harry. Appreciate it. Yeah, SailPoint was critical, and you're going to learn some great info from Leslie about that. So with that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. Ryan is our director of our IGA practice here. He helped lead the project at PG&E, and he is going to introduce Leslie and kick off the presentation.
Thank you, Dom. So I get the privilege of introducing my good friend, Leslie, who we've had the privilege of working together for a fair number of years now. So Leslie is currently the IAM operations manager at Pacific Gas and Electric, and she's been at PG&E in like 3 different roles over almost 11 years, all of which have been connected to the identity and access management space. So she truly is an expert in this space. For those of you who don't know, PG&E is one of the largest utilities in the United States, over 50,000 active employees and contractors. And because of the heavy and serious requirements around compliance, they're very mature in their identity governance and administration processes that they've been working on for a lot of years, meaning they really do it all. There really isn't an IGA process not in play at PG&E. So that being the case, there really isn't a better case study out there for anyone who's considering an OIM replacement or any legacy system for that matter, with a modern, more efficient, more capable platform in SailPoint. So Leslie and her team were incredible to work with, and we're really appreciative of her taking the time to share PG&E's story today, including the drivers and the challenges and the keys to success. So with that, turn it over to you, Leslie. You can take it away.
Thanks so much, Ryan. And thanks everybody for joining today. Again, I'm Leslie DeAnda. I am Operations Manager here at PG&E, and I'm really pleased to present to you today. PG&E's experience migrating from Oracle Identity Manager to SailPoint. I think you're going to enjoy what we have to present here today. So next slide, please. So at a very high glance, you know, some real quick statistics, interesting statistics. We addressed over 400 plus requirements in a 10-month timeline during COVID, which included 75 different integrated applications that ultimately resulted in us saving over $460,000 a year. These are great statistics for any project, but when we're talking about replacing an IGA system, enterprise solution, this was simply amazing. So today we'll take you through this journey and show you how we arrived here. All right, so there was a number of business challenges that we were facing here at PG&E that really drove our decision to move away from Oracle Identity Manager. First was, it was, you know, kind of a wide footprint, a technology footprint in terms of what we had to support to manage our IGA solution. It wasn't just OIM in a silo. We had to add a separate UI that was a bit more intuitive because users were unable to function clearly in the OIM UI. We also had a separate system to manage roles. And then finally, a separate system to manage all of our reporting capabilities. So that in of itself introduced lots of complexities from an operations department. The other thing that we struggled with was just simple maintenance, being able to address our own enhancements, bug fixes, even new integrations. It was very time consuming and costly because a lot of it required a developer to be dedicated to that work. And, you know, that coupled with the fact that here we are paying for this entire solution, at the end of the day, our customers still weren't really pleased, and we were still getting complaints from business process perspective. Those were some of our initial primary drivers. And as we kind of looked at what we wanted to achieve throughout this project, there was some real, you know, primary goals that were established. Again, reduced costs associated with maintaining our architecture is discussed, and some of those costs for the large number of pending integrations that we had from our business units. Also improve customer experience through a more intuitive UI and simplify those business processes, because we all know you have to have that fine balance, right, when it comes to security and making sure that business processes are easily understood and you're really getting to your objective. And then finally, we really wanted to position ourselves towards continuing IAM improvements, utilizing AI capabilities. And that was something that we definitely saw within SailPoint's portfolio technologies. So some would say, again, this was somewhat miraculous in the time frame that we completed the work in, especially during COVID, where everybody was virtual. Additionally, we had there were some hard deadlines that we have because we are such a heavily regulated industry. From a SOX perspective, for instance, we have some hard deadlines without being able to make certain control changes towards the end of the year for some of our reporting functions. So we were kind of pinned in from that perspective in terms of the timeline. And that did raise a lot of red flags. We were very concerned when we started out on our journey. But at a very high level, you could kind of get an idea here of our different key milestones and the dates that we utilized, the timeframes during which we conducted design, etc. So when we took a look at the project requirements, this really was a like-for-like functionality transition between OIM and SailPoint. We wanted to do a complete transition of what we had, plus address any critical deficiencies that we were aware of. Another requirement was that we needed to maintain our current requirements around NERC architecture. So that means on-prem solution. At the time, we were not planning to migrate to the cloud at all. Also, during this transition, we had to be very careful to not incur any additional findings, and that all of our existing integrations with applications that do have those regulations, they remained consistent and didn't miss a beat. And at PG&E, as Ryan mentioned, we don't use 10% of the product. We use every bell and whistle, right? We have lifecycle management workflows, access requests, access certifications, role management capabilities, and also change management ticketing processes. So all of these were our standard requirements for the project.
And Leslie, I was just going to add on the like for like thing, that we use that as a basis, as a premise. But then as you start to peel it back, you realize that some of the reasons things are done the way they are done was because Oracle didn't have the capability at the time. So some of those things were revisited in time, and that will always be the case, right? So you can start with a like for like as a base, and that plus part is plus we need to resolve, plus we need to get rid of some stuff we had to do because OIM only did it that way. So it started with that, but then you really do have to take that extra step. Anyway.
Yeah, great point, Ryan. Yeah, the more we peel back the onion too, we kind of said, well, why are we doing things this way? And to your point, it was the Oracle way of doing things. So moving into SailPoint, we really did get some more continuity, some of those benefits that we've been looking for, some of the gaps that we had been grappling with in the OIM product. Okay, and then from a migration challenges perspective, so we knew up front, that there was going to be very specific challenges that we needed to pay attention to ensure that we had this smooth transition. One of them was key stakeholder communications involvement, and also training, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. This is an enterprise-wide solution, and that engagement could really make or break our particular project success. Another area that we needed to make sure that we had in place was, again, meeting our audit requirements, and also redesigning what we call our safety nets. These are, preventative and/or detective controls that we've implemented into our IGA systems to make sure if something's not functioning the way that it should be, we are able to catch those and prevent some of those audit failures. So that's, detective reporting, alerts, monitoring, things of that nature had to be transitioned smoothly. And then also preparing our operations team to really take on and be able to support this transition to the new IGA platform. And that's an area where Integral Partners, again, was just a true partner, making sure the lines of communication were open. Our staff was trained, and I'll still say it to this day, Integral Partners does a great job in terms of documentation, probably some of the best that we've ever seen. So that was another key success area. And then really just making sure that all of our data that was migrating between Oracle Identity Manager and SailPoint was clean, that we were transitioning it in a way that was going to make our migration successful. So again, some of the keys to success as we look back, Integral Partners, again, this has been a partner that we've been utilizing for some time. We actually worked with them in the past to integrate OIM. And here again, I would say, the real partnership, it wasn't an us versus them. We really functioned as one team. Having that collaboration and accountability with each other, I think that was one of the cornerstones to our success. Really, Integral has the right people on their team. They've got great resources, great leadership capability. Just everybody that we've worked with at Integral has been fabulous. So definitely a testament to their capabilities. And also an interesting statistic, within 4 days of our go live, we used our help desk as kind of a litmus test to determine how successful we were. And we had a very low number of tickets submitted for help. And that just tapered right off during the first week. So we knew that we had reached our customers, that it was working successfully. And it just went very well overall. In terms of SailPoint, SailPoint is definitely, as most of you know, it's definitely a Gartner leader. And with IAM not being Oracle's kind of core function on their roadmap moving forward, we knew that we were needing to make a change. And SailPoint was one of those systems, again, you know, the high customer ratings, high customer interaction, usage, business flow perspective, everything got very high marks from that perspective. And it was very flexible, right? We didn't need a developer to code every single change down to notifications as we had in OIM. So really the flexibility of that system and their leadership in the IGA space, we knew it was the right solution for us. Also, you know, here, one of those things when you know you've done things right and you're walking down the hall and general users unsolicited come up to you and say, hey, you know, we really like the new system. It's really night and day difference in terms of what we had and where we've gone to. So thank you. When you get those types of responses, you know, you've hit the mark from a customer perspective. So that was great. And to the latter point, setting us up for the future, this is really where, you know, we're getting into things like identity AI and some of the predictive identity, looking for suggestions, again, to help our business processes as somebody's going through a certification campaign, having suggestions, right? Based on this user's profile, should this individual have access or not? Adding those types of functions to assist our users in those processes, that's really where the weight and the gold is. We get lots of questions on how am I supposed to know this or how do I do this? And for the general user, those small pieces of information that can smooth these processes out really make the difference between a successful implementation and not. We also utilize some of the password management functionality that was that's integrated into SailPoint's product. And this allows us to set new passwords for our new users, new employees and contractors without having to go through the help desk process. This greatly reduced the calls and tickets that our help desk was experiencing, and it also allowed our workforce to unlock through security questions, again reducing a lot of the tickets that the help desk was seeing. So great win is there as well. Excuse me. All right. So coming back again to, you know, again, keys to success, definitely in communication. I would say, you know, just in our experience, most technical projects tend to look over change management, but it's really, again, one of those important elements that's required. We learned that, you know, having the right communication, having training. We did a large number of training sessions, which Integral partners assisted us with. We were able to record them. We include links to our job aids and those recorded trainings in all of our communications that are sent out through our SailPoint system. Coordination with our help desk ahead of time, again, to train and so that they understood where users could get this information, details in case they're stuck, etc. And then also the communication with our SOCs and our compliance teams to make sure that they understood as we moved from OIM to SailPoint, what those key control changes were and how to test them moving forward. So communication, again, was a very key aspect. In terms of our strategy, this is kind of an interesting area that I think Ryan would agree, we mulled over for quite some time. And it was, our decision to either go with a phased approach or, the big bang approach, everything at once. And it was heavily debated because, we knew the phased approach would really require parallel system maintenance and several go live phases, which could introduce confusion for users. It's definitely a bigger pill to swallow from an operations perspective, or a big bang approach, which reduces complexity and cost. It's also kind of a big piece to bite off all at once. And we ended up deciding on the big bang approach, which did allow us to, validate our implementation ahead of time. Ryan, any thoughts or anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think this is the question that almost everybody freaks out about when it comes to a legacy migration is, how am I even going to do this? You hear the words big bang and everyone's like, no way, take that off the table. Let's just start talking about the phase. But in this case, in this scenario, weighing all the pros and cons, it made sense. Pairing it with, like you pointed out before, with the organizational change management and the preparation, and having a production system already there so that you can do your development, migrate into your production environment that's not live yet, but it's still a production environment, and being able to do your validation over many, many cycles over months in preparation, then you really cut down your window on what you're really risky about, the stuff that you can't fully test until you turn it on for the end users. So I think the approach was, it can be risky. I think it was managed extremely well, obviously here, and the only real way to get something this big done in that short of a window. So anyway, those are my additional thoughts there.
Thanks, Ryan. Definitely agree. Yeah. And, I think one of the challenges there too was we did have to pause, right, our integrations. So we had to balance business needs and really set those expectations that this is kind of a freeze zone, if you will. So, but yeah, definitely the right way to go in hindsight for us. Just in terms of, go live lessons learned, I think every best project in the world will still come out with some of those lessons learned. So we definitely had a few. For us at PG&E database sizing, we did uncover a few issues there with the initial sizing and configuration of our databases. As well as maybe some sufficient growth planning. So that's something, immediately after go live, we had to address that, and we're continuing to evaluate our architecture at this point and make sure that we've got the correct sizing in place. Also, another area that took a bit more elbow grease than originally anticipated was with our SAP password synchronization. And really there, some of the strict timelines and change management requirements for our SAP environment were some of the contributing factors, and just general awareness about how to configure SNC to make those communications work between SailPoint and SAP. That was another area that we spent longer than expected on. The other area I think is due to some of the environmental differences. As Ryan mentioned, you can't test everything until production in some cases. And that included some of our, what I referred back to as our safety net processes, making sure that we had all those detective and preventive controls really in place and dialed in. We continued to dial in after the go live until we got them appropriately configured. But there was definitely a longer tail, I would say, on stabilization, and really having staff on hand and readily available to identify and quickly fix issues. That was one of the key lessons learned. Integral partners, again, partnered through the end through stabilization. So we were really, kind of blessed across our two teams. We actively fixed things quickly. And so that was one of the things that made us more successful. So, some specific benefits that we walked away with, as we mentioned in the beginning, with some very specific goals and objectives. We definitely walked away with a simplified access review process, simplified IAM business processes, definitely faster performance in our system overall, and new password functionality that immediately produced cost savings for our organization. So really came out on top with some of those key benefits there. And at a high level, I'd like to just kind of show, this is what our UI looks like when you log in. We have our internally branded SailPoint UI, and this is how we decided to kind of customize our UI page with widgets. So one, if we're looking at number one there, workforce can track status of their own requests, something that was very difficult before in OIM. And then you can see in items 2 and 3, it's very simple for managers and or some of our catalog item owners to identify if they have pending approvals waiting for them, or any periodic or change of position certification reviews. Very, very simple, intuitive UI there. And when we take a look at the access request process, this was another one of those, back in OIM, very confusing, time consuming, lots of questions. How do I submit this request? Here in SailPoint, it's really as simple as 3 steps, right? You select your user, you either add or remove access with some of our catalog searches and filters, and you submit the request. It's, again, the intuitiveness of the UI is really a game changer. So other than that, there's a few key enhancements, that PG&E had, in addition to some of those standard implementation capabilities that most organizations will go through. One of them's around the entitlement metadata management. And, here again, because we are such a highly regulated organization, we needed to ensure that the right controls were put in place, where if we're dealing with an entitlement or a role that's pertaining to SOX or to NERC, for instance, that we're utilizing form field validation to require certification frequency at a quarterly interval, or 2-phase approval processes. And really locking that down was again key to making sure that we are meeting our requirements, and that end users didn't mistakenly make changes which could end up causing us some regulatory heartburn. Another area that we delved into also, and this is an area that we continue to improve on, is starting to utilize some of our statistics in terms of usage information. So during our first integration, we looked at SAP usage data, and we wove that into the certification processes, so that as either managers or role owners were going through and making decisions, they could actually see what was the last time an individual used this particular entitlement or T-code or what have you. That really adds some, decision-making capability for those individuals that are required to do the certifications. And we continue to look in this area for more applications to look at usage data and incorporate that into our certification process. So we're really excited about that. Also, from a compliance reporting perspective, we did have to transition from, as I mentioned, we had a separate BI instance doing reporting when we had Oracle. It was a transition over to SailPoint's reporting capabilities. This area was definitely more complex, definitely one of the more difficult aspects, I would say. I know SailPoint is continuing to work in this area to streamline those processes, and so we're partnering with them and providing our feedback. But here again, we were able to actually simplify some of our general user reports, our compliance reports, and actually our operational reports into SailPoint's capabilities. So that was another big win for us. From an HR perspective, in our prior architecture with OIM, we were utilizing an IDOC configuration for those that are familiar with that process, where the SAP HR system would send an IDOC over to OIM, we would pick it up there, and then we would process lifecycle events. We regularly had a number of issues with that architecture. So when we moved over to SailPoint, we implemented an SAP HCM connection, a more direct connection, and that's been working wonderfully. Other areas include learning management integration because of some of our regulatory requirements and just security requirements in general. For some entitlements and roles, we require certain courses to be taken before access is requested, as well as to maintain access. So if that training lapses, for instance, you should lose certain permissions. So we have a direct learning management integration that we included in our SailPoint integration. And then again, separation of duties. We have quite a number of cross-application segregation of duty policies and requirements configured in GRC. So we did a direct integration with GRC so that we can get that same capability and flexibility through SailPoint to manage those SODs, bring awareness, and actually prevent any high-risk SODs from going into production. I just want to pause there. Ryan, anything that you'd like to chime in on?
Sure. I mean, these are great. Just for everyone's understanding, that entitlement metadata management is really how PG&E allows end users. It's a robust set of processes and forms, and like Leslie was talking about, even form validations to allow the owners to actually manage their own metadata for all of the entitlements and roles that are out there. That owners can add or change the description. They can change whether or not it's NERC or not, but that goes through a very specific workflow to make sure that that's audited and approved, et cetera. So it really is the mechanism that really allows everyone to take ownership of the overall access and make sure that the data is accurate, current, makes sense for certifications, that descriptions are good. It's also the process used to create new Active Directory groups and change anything on those groups. All that's included in that process, so that they're created consistently put in the right location with a consistent naming standard, with all the appropriate metadata on them, so that they can be managed efficiently across the whole process. So, I mean, it really is a kind of a model for how to do it, especially at that level for that number of entitlements. Anyway, I just want to share that additional insight there.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
All right. So, that kind of wraps up an overview of where we've been, but wanted to also kind of give a preview of where we headed next, right? So here at PG&E, again, we're setting the stage for some bigger improvements through SailPoint that necessarily wouldn't have been possible through OIM. Really looking at different features and functions that we want to, move us to that next level, really making it successful for all of our business partners. So again, as Ryan mentioned, catalog metadata cleanup and ongoing management improvements, really ensuring that we've got the right preventative controls in place. Reducing some of the complexity, the timelines, and the cost for new integrations. We'll continue to forge in that area. But the really interesting area, again, is our use of Identity AI. We implemented this along with Identity IQ in our project. So it's been implemented, it's been running, it's been kind of picking up information, and we're looking forward to utilizing the predictive identity capabilities there. So, what are those high-risk users? Where are those outliers? How can we utilize this as a tool to better our security? Also in terms of, as I mentioned, those certification suggestions, as people are going through and performing certifications, what is the suggested, is it an approval or a revocation of certain permissions based on some of that AI predictive identity. And they're again really focusing on what is our key risks, right? So one of the challenges that we've had over time is, we do lots of integrations, things are getting hooked into our system and our certifications continue to grow. And at a certain point, as an organization, you kind of hit that certification fatigue period. So it's really, I think these capabilities give us an opportunity to really identify where are top risks. Let's maybe carve out anything else that's low risk that's been introduced. And potentially even reduce some of the certifications altogether to help some of that certification fatigue. So we're really looking forward to some of those capabilities. We have an active project this year with Integral Partners where we're delving into that now. So anything else that you would add, Ryan?
No, I think you nailed it there. Obviously, minimizing certification fatigue has been a topic of conversation for many years. And it's exciting, I think, what we have going on right now to really actually move the needle on that. So good stuff.
Leslie, Ryan, Harry, I can't thank you enough. We really appreciate you sharing your story. I happen to know that this really just scratched the surface, believe it or not, of all that was done. A funny story I just remembered. Earlier this year, we started to create an internal case study of this project. And as I remember it, the first version was 34 pages and that was edited down. So it's an amazing story and really appreciate you sharing it. Integral, we're focused exclusively on IAM. It's all that we do. We've got more than 20 plus years of experience internally. We cover every area of identity, from advisory to privileged access to IGA to customer identity, access enforcement, and even managed services. And as Harry was nice enough to mention there, we really can take it from what you heard here in this project, from the early stages to all the way through implementation and adoption. We're honored to be a trusted SailPoint partner. We've been an Admiral partner, I think, since the award was actually created. So one of the select few that has been awarded that. So we appreciate that. So Leslie, specifically to NERC, are you quarterly access reviews automated through SailPoint?
Yes, yeah, we've got a quarterly access review for all SIP entitlements. So for those familiar with NERC requirements, it includes both BES, our bulk electric system, as well as BCSI, which is our protected business SIP information. All of those entitlements and roles are certified on a quarterly basis.
All right, let's see some other questions here. At the start, it was mentioned that other tools were used to attempt to get what you needed out of OIM. Why? What were they? And were any replaced or kept?
Yeah, good question. So the portfolio of technology that we needed to support along with OIM included PSL UI. That was our UI that we utilized. We also had Savient for some of their role modules. They just didn't work out to what we were expecting at PG&E. So that was another area that we were able to retire. And then BI. We still have BI implemented because it's an enterprise solution, and we still do some queries for audit purposes against our OIM databases. But other than that, we're primarily using SailPoint right now for our reporting capabilities. So that was a big win for us to shrink our technology portfolio in this space.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Let's see here. How long was the process of planning and choosing the new tools before implementation started? And what was the process like?
Sure. Yeah. So I moved into this role back in July of 2019. And I believe that we were just finalizing the contracts at that point. And at that point, I know we were signing up with Integral Partners and with SailPoint. Honestly, though, I believe that those decisions, it was fairly quick. in terms of SailPoint being really the leader in this space and seeing the capabilities, ensuring that it could meet our needs, being in, Gartner's leading quadrant, all of those areas kind of added up to where we wanted to move. So I believe it was maybe from 2019, and I believe we got our contract signed in 2020, but the decision, I believe, was fairly simple from a technology and platform perspective.
Yeah. If I remember, there was really two options that were really being considered, and that was Savient or SailPoint. Already had Savient in-house, had some experience there, and then it was having the evaluation, the conversations, doing the analysis. There was some analysis done with the help of the SailPoint team as well on the business value, that also helped get it through the process to actually come to that conclusion. So it was a great work by the SailPoint sales team to assist in that regard on the business value and business specification side. So the combination really just came out with SailPoint, and then it was, bring integral partners in and let's get this done. So
perfect, great guys. Thanks.
Yeah, we have that tool, the BVA tool, we're happy to use, and it really provides the ROI, or helps provide the ROI that customers need and our partners can work with to properly present the right solution. So we're happy to use it.
All right, so the next one, it's around cost savings. Were you able to save money by eliminating the license? If not, are you realizing savings elsewhere? So you can cover what you want there. I know you touched on it a little bit, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think in terms of like tangible savings, again, reduction of our technical footprint, we were able to save, PSL, we were able to retire completely. Savient, we retired completely. Oracle pricing is interesting. I think we're bundled with some other things. We're looking forward to reducing our costs in that area fairly shortly here. And then there's just many other, soft savings, as I mentioned, integration timelines and costs to our internal lines of business. It's much quicker and cheaper for us to do connections through SailPoint. So the list goes on.
Okay. Appreciate it. Let's see here. How many applications do you connect SailPoint to?
Yeah, in terms of how many, so we started doing a count. I think we were up to, there was 75 applications at the time of transition. We got up to 82 because we had kind of a large floodgate, right, of pending requests waiting for us. And then we've just started tracking additional applications through some of our AD connectors, and we're up to approximately 700 or so integrations. So it's quite a number when we include the AD connectors there.
Might partially explain the 34-page case study, I'm assuming. All right. Was your go live really big bang, or were there stages along the way that you put into production that maybe didn't impact the business process or end users?
Yeah, for the most part, I mean, it was big bang. I'll let Ryan kind of chime in here too. We did, we were able to have the luxury to configure production ahead of time, again, kind of work out some of the kinks. We did have a freeze period. It was a very short freeze period where we didn't allow requests to come through. We halted certifications. There was a lot of real specific planning and, cautiousness around our particular schedule on that front. But Ryan, do you want to add to that as well?
Yeah, no, I think you said it exactly. So in parallel, we were able to move the stuff into a production environment and do validation in a production environment. But from an end user perspective, it was a big bang. End users went one night from using this system to the next day they're using this system. And so that part is big bang from that standpoint, from a user cutover. We also had to do pretty again, we tried to do it within a week, 2-week period at the longest of the migration. But that is, like Leslie said, you turn off you let users know we need a moratorium for about a week. No one can put in new access requests for this week, so that the data is ready to go when you make your data transfer. So things like that were done to prevent, you know, things getting stuck halfway in this system, not ready to go into the new system. And then you do have to do a cutover where you turn on actual provisioning processes, right, as a kind of a big bang. So try to minimize as much as possible what that big bang is by getting your production environment up and getting all your stuff on there and testing everything you can on that production environment before end users get on there, and then you turn it on. That's kind of the approach.
All right. What are key differences, if any, in internal resources skills needed to manage the new tool versus running OIM?
Wow. So I think from an OIM perspective, you know, it was just really difficult to manage. We constantly had to supplement our operations staff with developers and external support. I would say now, you know, after training and after going through the implementation, also working with integral partners on supplemental enhancements following go live, you know, the team's really well staffed, and we're able to address things directly ourselves. It's been a wonderful experience overall. It's a much simplified process other than what we were dealing with in OIM terms.
Okay. All right. I've got a lot of questions about SailPoint and AI. So Brian, I think you and Leslie can talk to it. Harry, there's also, I know Deana Reed is on the call as well.
Yeah, get Deana. Deana's the man.
His
middle name is AI, so
I am here.
You're there.
Great Deana Reed. All right, in the house.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll keep it high level, but basically there's really 3 offerings in the AI product offering. And there's really kind of 2 main points, right? The first point is about really understanding what's going on in your environment. Is your program working, right? And that comes in the context of, from an audit perspective, seeing a historical timeline of all of your users. What did they get access to? What was taken away? Why was it done? What was the catalyst for it? A attribute change, et cetera. When were accounts enabled, disabled, deleted? And then comparing access over time. So you're really looking to say, as an auditor, are we governing our people correctly with the processes that we have in place? And you now have that facility to do it. Your auditors no longer have to kind of dumpster dive in log files trying to figure out, is governance working? The second part of this first piece is called Access Insights. And so the second piece of Access Insights is almost like think of it as a Salesforce.com of your IGA world. So what are my people requesting? At what frequency? By whom? What are my revocation percentage rates versus the approval rates in my access certifications? i.e., are they even working, or are people just bulk approving it? Where are my people? You know, how long is our access request taking? What are they requesting? It really helps you understand, and these are all filterable, by the way. So I can now see my people, or I can see this information at a macro level. And the idea here is really just to understand, in my fiefdom of control, what is going on, and are there ways in which I can actually enhance the effectiveness of my governance program? And you know, I think governance programs are ineffective at times because of kind of death by 1,000 cuts. There's no big like arterial slice that stops them from working. And so it's really important that everybody in their fiefdom of control can see what actually is going on, and they can then make positive change into the program, talk to the people who are bulk approving, because we now have the information we needed to now go ahead and make change. The second side of this is really, I think, where the main question comes from, which is it's about identifying over entitlement of users, remediating that access, and then building better things like roles and keeping roles current for the business. And this is really an infinite loop of progress, right? And so, or infinite feedback loop, I should say. The more we can identify using AI and machine learning clusters of people that have similar access, we can then ask ourselves, what is that access? Bundle it, then ask, who are these people? So causation, right? Who are these people? And we can now say, all right, benefits clerks get these items. And as the business moves on, and people request more and more things, we continually test that hypothesis of what do benefits clerks actually have right now. And so we can provide things like role insights back to the business to say, hey, these are ways in which we think your currently defined role contents should change. And of course, the better we do that, the less items there are to certify, the more it becomes obvious to see what is in addition to what you have by birthright. And of course, it makes your certification program better. And then, of course, by making your certification program better, it makes role definition better. So this peer group analysis approach really puts you in a whole new state of governance, in that we can better identify over entitlement, or what I call obsolescence risk, the obsolete access need, get rid of it. And then, of course, when people look more like each other, they look more like their job function, and thus we can build better roles. So at a high level, that's really what we're doing. We're going to help you build roles. We're going to help you identify over entitlement in your certifications with thumbs up, thumbs down icons that drive better revocation rates. And then, of course, once we build those, help you build those roles, we'll help you keep those roles current.
And Dominique, yeah, the only thing I was going to add, we've done this about over 300 times, replacing Oracle, and we're very skilled in it. And partners like Integral are very skilled in it. And we would be very excited to talk to any of the people attending the webinar today about how we could potentially do it for them. So,
absolutely. Huge thanks to Harry. Huge thanks to Ryan, and biggest thanks to Leslie for all your help in telling the story.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Leslie is the GOAT of IAM.
Yes, she
Greatest
is.
of all time. Yeah.
And thanks to everybody for attending. I know webinars are, there's a lot of them out there. So thanks everybody for attending. Have a great day, and we appreciate it. Take care, everyone.